very fertile training ground for what was moved, transferred, taken right straight out of the playbooks of Nazi Germany, brought to this country, and are now being brought to their fruition based on the lessons learned in Germany, based on what they knew they could do and what they couldn't do, what they should have done and didn't do, which ultimately found them in the position of not being able to succeed. But here is the difference. The American people are still dealing with ignorance, meaning they don't have the facts. Well, we're doing our very best, and Steve, I appreciate all the programs that you've been involved with here with Doug and Joe in the last several months. Been groundbreaking, every one. Steve, you are a watchman of the ultimate, in the ultimate sense, and so I thank you for that, and Doug and Joe for being obedient and having these programs broadcast, because they are so critical. And I'm telling you, people are not hearing this hardly anywhere else in the world, let alone in this country. You are ignorant if you don't have the facts. You are, forgive me, you are stupid if you have the facts and don't use them. And I've said many times that medical science, if it goes on another 10,000 years, will not find a cure for stupid. So there is only one way to defeat that, and that is to be informed, that is to know history, that is to look about you and see what's happening, to listen very carefully, to assess on your own, to plan with your families, to go to the police officers that you know personally, the sheriff's deputies that are friends that live just down the road, whatever it might be, and strike up a conversation, a low-level one. Just say, you know, I'm concerned. I'm just a guy here. I do my best, and I'm concerned. What are we facing? Talk to these guys. Open a dialogue, because one of these days you will have a dialogue with somebody in a uniform with a badge or with a name tape on it or with a command patch on the sleeve, and you're going to find out that because you did not take the opportunity to know what you should know, you won't be able to even open your mouth to have a discussion with this person when they say to you, step over here, please. You, letter A, you're on this bus. Letter B, you're on this transport. And you won't even know what's going on. So as the TSA is expanding outward from the airports, as the ports are becoming armed camps, anytime you want to go down and watch them unload a ship, you got to show ID. It's becoming a Nazi state. It has become that, actually. We simply go ahead day to day, gentlemen, and we convince ourselves that this is the land of the free and the home of the brave because we sing it before every football and baseball game. It's not happening. It's not there. It hasn't for years. It is not happening now. The kids in some of the schools say Pledge of Allegiance. They don't know what it means when they say, and to the republic for which it stands. They don't even challenge what they're learning in school. They don't know any different because they haven't been taught that challenge is part of learning. But they can't challenge because if they are, then they're put into a certain category and suddenly they're marginalized. And they're not making the basketball team, or they're not making the honor roll, or whatever it might be. Now, you take this from that level all the way up through government service, and what we have is a nation in captivity right now, in captivity to ignorance, in captivity to the slavery of the economy, in captivity to not knowing what our constitutional rights are. I don't care. We can argue into the night whether or not the Constitution is still in effect, whether it went out March 1st, 1933, whether it went out during the time of Lincoln, whether it doesn't matter. We have a Constitution, and we should be standing on it. In fact, we should be standing on the street corners with our protest signs, and if necessary, our rifles, saying to those in charge of us, who are leaning on us, who are taking our rights every single day and pushing us down a corral. It's like being the lead steer at the slaughter yards. When you go down that chute, you ain't coming back. So you got to decide whether or not you're going to back up now and you're going to throw up a fit and you're going to break down those corral gates and you're getting out. because that's what it will come to at some point. I have sheriffs telling me, I have state troopers telling me, I have officers telling me on police departments that they have this down so well that the 95% of the people that are to be taken in immediately on the first wave will be taken before they even know that the police officers are at their door, at the work place, or stopping them on the highway because they got their GPS location. They don't even know what's coming. So you tell me that these men who have planned, who've trained, who've been out in the roads, who've been masquerading as driver's license check lanes and DUI check lanes, they've been doing it to test the ability of the American people to resist the unlawful stops and search and seizure that's been done, just like Steve mentioned earlier, with the DNA capture from people that just say, okay, whatever you tell me, okay, well, whatever you want me to do. Really, is this where we are? Yes, it is. And so tonight is one of those last-ditch efforts before whatever happens. You must have your plan. You must have made up your mind. You must have confronted what is coming in an honest, open fashion. If you don't, you will be the first victim.
Greg, if I can, Doug here. Two things. First, Steve, you said something extremely critical. In my view, I had talked to one of my sources earlier today, again in preparation of this program. The thing you said that was extremely critical is that the individuals, the law enforcement officers, the federal policing agents are not going to be from your community. And I think, Dr. Evenson, you had kind of intimated this as well. They're going to be brought in from other locations. This is not your Andy of Mayberry community policing that you are used to, where you are living among those who are policing us. These people, for the operations which you are referencing, are going to be brought in from other areas, as they were in, for example, in Colorado, Jefferson County, Colorado, for the practice there. I think it was during the 2008 Democratic National Convention, in 1996 DNC convention, perhaps in Chicago, the same thing. So very, very important, I believe. But secondly, let me get your take, Dr. Evenson, if I can. Why? Right now, this being Thanksgiving, for example, you've got TSA checkpoints all over the place, especially at the airports. Dr. Evenson, why shouldn't the average American listening to this broadcast, when they're traveling for Thanksgiving tomorrow or the next day, say no? I'm not going to be nuked, and I'm not going to be physically assaulted by any TSA agents at the airport or on my way to the airport or from the airport. Can we not bring this system to a grinding halt?
Yes, Doug, it's possible, and I've encouraged it for some time, but I will tell you that when you if you can isolate one or two people that you might overhear, and you just say, I don't like this either. I'm not. Why do we have to do this? Just kind of go at it with a gentle question as opposed to a harsh statement. It'll get you a lot further into the discussion. And what they're saying is, look, it's my job. I've got to be in Los Angeles this afternoon. I've got to be in Denver today. I've got to be in Pittsburgh tonight. So I, and my family's kind of, and that's where we go with it. It's never a matter of principle, fellas. It's never a matter of what we should do, and that which is being pleaded by people that are out there saying, "What can I do? How can I do this?" It's not being done because there has not been a sufficient amount of offense taken by the American people. They have not been sufficiently teed off by what has happened yet. They hear about it, they see reports on the news about it, but they go, well, fortunately that's not happening here in Michigan, or that's not happening in Pennsylvania, or it's not happening in Montana. But it is happening where these people are, and they don't know what to do. I get calls on a frequent basis, emails on a frequent. You wouldn't believe what I saw in Tennessee. And Tennessee has been one of the most egregious states at setting up the Tennessee State Police Department. or the Tennessee Highway Patrol, I guess, that have set up these arbitrary checkpoints and have been asking all kinds of questions. One gentleman I know very well pulled off the road. He saw this blockade and pulled off into a private parking lot, was sitting there contemplating what he was going to do. One of the officers, a couple of them, saw what he did, went over to where he was. He was probably a quarter mile, maybe not quite that much, away from the dead zone where all cars were stopped, and they actually came up, demanded identification on private property. They said, "Are you armed?" They got him out to search him. He was armed, and he was charged, taken in, arrested, and processed for not having done anything except pull off the highway onto a parking lot on private property. And yet they proceeded. They knew they could do this. They knew they would do it. Ultimately, 6 months later, at great cost, he was able to get out from the charge because there was no reason for the charge in the first place. He had violated no law. But you see, the standard now is we will make you fight for the rights you already have so that you will not be quite so willing to fight. Because if you do, you're going to jail. And when you go, you're going to be charged. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars, and it will cost you your job, perhaps. It will cost you a criminal history, perhaps. And there are things that they know right up front that you will not challenge them on. That's why they're getting away with it. That's why TSA is able to go ahead and search us every time we go through the airports, because we're not pushing back figuratively and literally and saying, "Don't put your hands on me. I have no arms. I am not armed." That should be sufficient.
And I'd like to mention, you were talking about Tennessee. Recently, I think 2009 was the first year that 2009, 2010, Tennessee was the first state that started the Viper, or mobile TSA teams that were on buses and bus stations, train stations, and they were rolling this out and they had that on the local news. Now, there's a story out of Tennessee here and talking about the militarization and how far the police officers go at times. There was a father who was arrested for picking up his children from school, not in his vehicle. I guess there's a policy that if you want to pick up your kids from school, you must be in a vehicle. But this gentleman...
I think, Steve, you linked to that article that from the New American, by the way.
Yes, I did.
I mean, it's just amazing to see, all this, the complete erosion of any law enforcement personnel following the Constitution or following the law. It's been the opposite, and it continues to go down this path. And what you're saying is,
Joe, I think it goes beyond the erosion of the law enforcement to an erosion of the people's right to move about freely and with their own sense of this is what I'm doing today. I don't have to be told by a police officer that I have to park here, or that I have to do this, or I can't go into this building without being searched. It has become a matter of we have acquiesced to it. We have said, yes, we will do it because what? Because it's more convenient. Because for us, it's less time taken out of our all-important day that we're going to sidestep our freedom. We're going to surrender our freedom at the doorpost because it's just something that it makes us feel like we're being kind of obedient children, and we're not being lawbreakers, and therefore we're not doing anything wrong. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not doing much right either, because if you were resisting, if you were pushing back, much of this would not have gone through. But the people in Washington, the people at the state government level that are allowing these teams of Islamic extremists and other extremists into this country that have one goal, and that is to neutralize the Christian church and Christian believers and faith-filled people into retreating into their homes and into the basements of the churches rather than going out into the neighborhoods and standing on the unbelievable authority of God's Word found in every verse of the Holy Bible, that they do not have to apologize for their faith or what they believe in, that they can stand on that the angels of heaven are waiting to proclaim that the American people have found their way, and that God will hear and turn them from their wickedness, and they will have an opportunity to make a difference. That's why I am so encouraged tonight that police officers' families and military families across the country, and I'm sorry to say that maybe it had to come from the genesis of the family unit. I'm not sorry to say that. I guess that's not right. I guess it just took a while. That it eventually evolved into, look, honey, I can't let you go out this door without telling you how concerned I am for you and for what you're doing. This is coming from men and women. It is coming from military and law enforcement. And there's finally a position being taken by many of these families and family members, even teenage sons and daughters, who have, I've had the reports that they have gone to their mom or dad weeping, dropping to their knees, hanging on to their legs like they would have when they were little children, and saying to them, don't do this. Do it with a sense of righteousness. Do it with a sense of godliness. Don't do this, Dad. Don't go out there and be a part of this. I just saw this on TV tonight. Don't do this. It's happening and happening and happening. And I say thank God for it, because it is maybe the turning point. If there's going to be any at all, it will be, gentlemen, because people have finally woken up.
Fantastic. Well said. Steve, we got about 3 minutes to the top of the hour.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Colorado incident, because this is really critical. For all of you in Colorado in any form of law enforcement, you've got to ask the question, what happens to your families when you are forced to go at the risk of losing your job to a military camp for training? What happens to your families? Well, let me tell you what I've been briefed on. And I'm sorry to have to tell you this. I'm not sorry, but it breaks my heart. Your families are already known. Every single one of you who's in law enforcement, and Greg will absolutely validate this, your dossiers have already been presented to the handlers of every department. They know who is a believer. They know whose wife is a believer. They know where your kids go to school. Here's what I want to make this clear. If you go, your families are held hostage. And what Greg and I are going to pray for you tonight is that God is going to give you such conviction, either in dreams or visions, and a supernatural knowing in your knower, a confirmation that you will be protected and your families will be protected under no circumstances. I'm going to say this 3 times. Leave your family. Under no circumstances allow yourself to be separated and taken to another state away from your families. They're using you as cannon fodder. They will not think twice about doing what they have to do to your families, even to them. And I'm sorry, but I've got to tell you this. They will do whatever they have to get you to toe the line. So if you don't put yourself in a position to be compromised from the start, and by the way, when you're ordered to do that, you might as well figure it out. Your days are numbered in what you know, because the blue list and the man who gave me this, ahead of the Environmental Protection Agency over the western United States, almost, 15, 18 years ago, was basically murdered for saying this. You guys get whacked in the second 30 days. Whacked. Assassinated, liquidated. You guys will die. This is not a psyop I'm working on you. This is the plan. The plan is in place. It's